And we are on. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Kalpesh Patel, and it gives me great pleasure to bring you another episode of Nuts and Bolts of Leadership in Direct Selling. So today, I want to share a little bit about, again, I just do this. I share my nuggets of experience, having been doing this nonstop for 28 years, and constantly working on my inner self and sharpening the saw, so to speak. I get to now share with you what it takes to master this beautiful industry, right? One of the things that we often take for granted is what we know, and it's easily done, and we don't give ourselves enough acknowledgement to recognize how far we've come. And I want to just have all of you be present to that as well. Whoever's watching this, whether you're watching the live or you're watching the recording, I want you to look back on your journey and just jot down, always have pen and paper ready, right? I want you to look back in your journey and just jot down some of your, what I call peak achievements. What are some of your peak life achievements? If you can, some of you might run out after one or two, in which case you need to be a lot more generous on yourself. There's no way you can get to wherever you are in life and only have done one or two great things. All right. So one of the things we can all learn from is people that are more generous upon themselves. All right. So, just lay it on there. What are some of the greatest things that you've managed to achieve, experience, survive in this lifetime? What did you get past that at the time may have felt like an impossible journey, but you look back and you go, wow, I actually did that. And I did that. Oh my God, I did that as well. Wow, I did this as well. All the things that you take for granted. One of the things, like one of the most common things, for example, that people take for granted is like travel. You cannot take travel for granted. It's one of the biggest gifts that you give yourself, right? The ability to see the rest of this planet. Like one of the things that shocks me even to this day is that 70% of the US doesn't even have a passport. It's a shocker. 70% of the US population, so of the 300 and something million people, a couple of 100 million of them do not even have a passport. That means it's not even the thought of seeing the rest of the world. It's like not even a concept. Like if somebody doesn't own a passport, there's no intention, is there? It's not like they're in a country where they're not allowed to have passports, right? I mean, that's a whole nother situation to be in, where you might be in a country where you're not allowed to travel. I'm sure there are countries like that on the planet, but no, we're talking about the USA here, right? And then imagine of the ones that have got a passport, I bet there's a ton of them that have not really traveled. And when I mean traveled, I mean experienced different locations around the world. So I know that the UK is very guilty of this. The UK population does have passports, but they're really famous for going back to the same location for their 2 weeks a year in, year out. I have friends that go back to the same place, not just the same country, they'll go back to the same resort year after year after year after year after year after year after year. And I'm like, wow, talk about taking stuff for granted. Like you got this beautiful planet, you've got planet Earth, and you can get around it pretty much as and how you please. But even if you're restricted by budget, in the UK, get to at least, I don't know, 20, 30 different places on a low budget in Europe, in a couple of hours flight, 2-3 hour flight, people discover one. So write down some stuff, like I said, be generous and write down some stuff that you've done that you may just be taking for granted. And then write down some things that you still want to do? What are some of the things you still want to do? What this does is, and I mentioned it once already, it sets the intention, right? So the reason you want to give yourself a pat on the back and acknowledge how far you've come is that creates a mindset of possibility. It puts you in a state of what's possible. You've conquered some impossible scenarios in your life. That gives you real life references that the impossible became possible. So now you start building that muscle by focusing on it, that you are a miracle creator. You're a possibility creator. You make stuff happen that at the time was not going to happen. Odds were against, and you overcame the odds. You proved yourself worthy. Now you get those references and you want to stack as many of those as you can. It's evidence of your ability to step into your greatness. You want to look for as many references as possible for evidence that you are far more capable than you probably relate to yourself as most of the time in life. Because we don't often spend too much time doing this stuff. We're just in cruise control, autopilot. We survive something and it's like, phew, and then we get back to normal. Instead of celebrating the fact that we just overcame something that seemed impossible to overcome. All right. So realize, and again, this is all part of it, right? Realize. Self-actualization, realizing what you're capable of, that you are more powerful than you give yourself credit for most of your life. Nothing wrong with that. It's called being human. That's what we do. We get comfortable. Our default position is always comfort. But if the less we remember our peak moments, our peak experiences, the less we relate to ourselves as that person. The more you remember your peak experiences, the more you start relating to yourself as that person that is able to create miracles. Because you are. You've got the power to create miracles. So now how about you set the intention of creating more miracles by building that muscle, focusing on your ability to create miracles as often as you can. And this becomes a practice, right? So the reason I'm saying to write it down is that you can now, because a couple of things happen when you write stuff down. One, when the actual act of writing something down in itself engages multiple parts of the brain and the neurological system than thoughts alone ever could. Your thoughts are just one tiny, tiny fraction of tapping into your power. I know gazillions of people that think that they can think their way to success, and they spend the whole time in their head. They don't do the other work that's needed around it. You can spend, in fact, most people do, your entire life in your head, and nothing much changes on the outside. So the act of writing what's going on in here and putting it onto paper instantly builds a neurological pathway in your brain that then becomes much easier to access whenever you want it. And then the other thing that happens, once it's on paper and you've gone through the process of connecting the brain to the hand and making your hand a move to write something down, and then watching with your eyes as you write it down and repeat it to yourself in your head as you're writing it down. So these are all the things that are happening when you're doing the writing down, right? You're looking at the words. We're mostly visual. Most people are mostly visual. Many people are very auditory as well. And so you're also listening to yourself repeat your story as you're writing it down. There's multiple things happening. It's almost inevitable that if you're looking at yourself writing it down and it engages the visual experience, then you're listening to yourself going through that process. It's not long before you engage your emotional pathways to the experience, and you feel those experiences, right? All of these are processes that work. There's a reason they work. We are such beautifully designed creatures. So as you're writing, you're doing a ton more than just writing. You think, I'm just writing. No, you're not just writing. You're engaging parts of your brain and your nervous system that are not otherwise engaged ever. Hence why these things just work. You remember the things you write down a gazillion times more easier than you do if you don't write them down. So if you want to remember your peak experiences, write them down. And write them down often in the beginning, right? You're engraving. It's like you're creating back in the day, it would have been an LP, right? You're creating a groove. Then it became a CD. You couldn't see the groove anymore, but they were there, right? You're creating your groove that then becomes second nature for you. Now what happens is when you visualize what you want to do next, like what are the next peak experiences you want to create for yourself? Your memory, your muscle memory, if you like, of your memories of peak experiences start working for you. You don't even realize how they go to work. That's the magic of this universe. That your thoughts start getting aligned towards your intention. They all come together. Your thoughts begin to narrow down where you eliminate all of the, if you like, negative experiences that you constantly focus on and beat yourself up with. Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I do this? Blah, blah, blah. The usual stuff. Right? Most people are beating themselves up for way too long on things that make no sense to beat yourself up over. So when you start focusing on the right things, then you start manifesting more of that type of thinking. And then if you understand that everything starts with thinking, then you're fine-tuning your mind. It's not an overnight journey, by the way, right? So it's going to require patience to fine-tune the mind, because most people's lives are designed to not do that. And it's not most people's lives. The structure that we live in, the world is designed like that. The world is designed to distract you. What did the Romans say? Food and entertainment, right? Food and games. That's how it all first was kind of patterned out, right? Food and games. The Romans worked that out really well, that the masses will not question everything if you feed them and keep them entertained. Isn't that interesting? They won't question anything. A whole lifetime will pass by and they'll go, how did that just happen? How did I go through my whole life and not do anything? Never tap into my potential. Never acknowledge my greatness. Never do anything spectacular. How did I spend my whole life living in fear, minimizing myself, diminishing myself? Because you spent far too much time on food and entertainment. That's how you did it. So one of the biggest gifts you can give yourself is eat less and get distracted less. Power of focus. All of the greatest books talk about it. The power of focus. And there's a beautiful acronym for focus. And it's follow one path until successful. I really love that. Follow one path until successful. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. Why do all the books talk about that? Why does every single success story talk about the ability to do that? Is one of the biggest breakthroughs, because focus is a discipline. That's one of the hardest disciplines that most humans will ever take on. Like having a laser focused mind, a mind that can cut out all distractions, does not get distracted easily. And if you can do that, if you can focus on one thing until successful, that it kind of follows from what I'm saying. You create your own blueprint of success. You now know that if you focus on anything, concentrated focus, if you put concentrated effort in anything, you can manifest it. And that works for great things as well as shitty things. It's amazing. We do have the skills. Most of us focus on the shit all the time. And then we're wondering why there's a lot of shit happening in our life. It's all linked. When you start getting this, if there's a lot of shit in your life, it's because you're thinking about a lot of shit in your life. That's your pattern. It's your go-to default thinking mechanism. That's why I say this is not an easy conversation, because it's really easy to be lazy in thinking. Lazy in thinking means you never analyze your thoughts. Horrible, horrible waste of opportunity. One of the greatest gifts I gave myself was analyzing my thoughts from a very young age. Why did I think that about that person? Why did I think that about that event? Why did I think that about X, Y, Z, whatever it might be? Having the thought is one thing. Analyzing the thought is the power. Working out what drives your thinking patterns. That's how you unlock power. Because then once you can work that stuff out, you can realize very quickly that you can recreate anything. Any story you have about any person or any situation or any scenario, whatever thoughts you have about any of that stuff is complete nonsense. But you don't realize it's nonsense because you say it to yourself so often, you think it's true. And it's only true because you keep repeating to yourself that that's what's true. So it's true for you. As you've often heard it said, there's no truth other than your truth. Everyone's got their version of the truth. There's like your version of the truth, somebody else's version of the truth, and then there's the truth. Most people only ever see their version of the truth, and then they fight everyone else's version of the truth, not realizing that the truth is somewhere in between the two. So if you can disassociate your thinking from your life experience and then control your thinking, these are all like the tricks to manifestation, right? And it's not easy because our addiction to thinking the way that we're used to thinking is so strong. Our brain has got us by the short and curlies. We're useless in front of our brain. Most people's brain is like the tail that wags the dog. Most people's thoughts are telling them how their life is. And when you argue with your own brain, you're taking on a massive, massive monster, man, because it is not going to like it. Your brain is not going to like you when you start challenging it. When you start questioning your own thoughts, your identity is going to hate you. Your ego is going to whoop you up the backside. It's going to kick you around and convince you that you're on the wrong path and you need to get back in line. Get back into the status quo. Fit in. Do what everyone else does. Don't have a passport. Just joking. To all the American friends on the Zoom. It's not personal. I'm sure there are loads of other countries with that don't have passports in large volumes as well, right? So once you get the power of focus, you know, you heard it a million times, get laser focused. Then you kind of get obsessed. When you're not thinking about anything else and all of your thoughts and energy are going onto that one thing for an extended period of time, then you compound the speed with which you manifest that. Thinking about something once a day, it might happen over a period of a long period of time. Thinking about it a few times a day, it's more likely to happen and sooner rather than later. But when you're obsessing about something, it's inevitable and it happens lightning quick. You must have often heard of people that have a challenge in their life, have a problem, and they focus on that, on trying to find a solution. Sometimes when our back is up against the wall, we do know how to tap into the magic. We're focusing on the solution, focusing on the solution, focusing on the solution, focusing on the solution. We can't find one. We go to sleep and suddenly we wake up and the solution's there waiting for us. Because the brain is now listening to you rather than you listening to the brain. And you are demanding greatness. You're demanding the solution. And you're trusting yourself to know that you can find the solution. And the brain will always listen to you when you take control. When you become the master of your brain, its only function is to listen to you. But if you're not the master of your brain, then you will just end up listening to it. And it's all over the place. And therefore life is all over the place. Can you see how it all works? When you start piecing all of this together, the whole universe works perfectly until we get to the human. And then it's a complete mess. But if we work with the universe, then it's not a mess. If the universe can work as perfectly as it does, never missing a beat, no stress, no panic, just existing in absolute perfection all the time for billions of years. Surely you can tap into a little bit of that, right? So that's the name of the game. How do we do what the universe does effortlessly and we make look so difficult to do? So what if success was actually a lot easier than you've been pretending your whole life that it is? Because we do it, don't we? Like, even when we achieve something, we feed off of telling people how difficult it was. We actually want them to think we really went through something. It was so hard, so difficult. We do all of that. We play to the drama. But was it? Was it really? Or was it inevitable once you worked out how the universe works? Like, you know, when you start piecing that stuff together, the behind the scenes stuff, it's actually not difficult, is it? It's not difficult to get focused on something, obsess on something, so that all you know is everything about that thing until you've worked out where you want to get to in that space. And here's what else happens. You can then start applying the same strategy to other areas of your life. If you can work one area out, and some of us have, we work one area out, but we haven't realized that, hold on, if I've got this worked out, I can apply the same rules and strategies to other areas of my life. So you'll have some people that are really super successful with money and shit in all the other areas of their life. Or some people that are super successful with their health and shit with all the other areas of their life. Or super successful in their relationship, but really shitty in all the other areas of their life. Do you see what I'm saying? And they haven't figured out that they've got it figured out. Because that's how clever the brain is. It will trick you into minimizing you as often as it can. And if it can't beat you in one area, it will beat you in all of the others. But it doesn't have to. And then what if you could push back in all of the areas? What if you could nudge it back to your potential rather than to where you've told yourself that that's all you're good at, that's all you're worthy of, that's as far as you can go? I can't go any further. I've tried everything. No, you haven't. You've never tried everything. And you can always go further in everything. Even the people that are at the peak of their craft are always breaking their own records. Always. People that are the best of the best of the best of whatever they do are always breaking their own records. And when they stop breaking their records, somebody else comes along and breaks their records. That's why humans are always showing the potential of what we're capable of through people that apply these principles, right? Great places to look is any area that as humans we acknowledge as successful, because that's a good place to start, right? So oftentimes we acknowledge people that achieve big results in their career. We look at that successful. Well, if you just study that, then look at the top few percent, the top 4 or 5% of people in careers, and you'll see the patterns of behavior the same right the way through in any profession. The patterns of behavior are exactly the same. That gets people to that top 5%. If you study sports, the patterns of behavior are exactly the same always across all of the top performers in any sport. If you look at business, the patterns of behavior are always exactly the same across multiple industries when you study the people that are at the top of their industries. It's the same always, it's always there. So it's not like there's a lack of evidence or a lack of knowledge now. And today, with the internet, I mean, back in the days, you only had a limited amount of access to information. Thanks to the internet today, you can learn more in one lifetime than the previous 20 generations learned in all of their lifetimes combined, because of one tool. Imagine that's the access we've got today. We've got access to the entire planet's knowledge base at our fingertips. No excuses anymore, right? If you want to study the successful people, whatever area you want to study them in, guess what? I dare you to study successful people in network marketing. Wouldn't that be a thing? And guess what? What's the likelihood that it's exactly the same rules across all of the different companies to the people that are hitting all the top ranks? Same set of rules every time. No room for error. What if that was how it worked? How cool would that be? Well, guess what? I've got news for you. That's exactly how it works. In fact, that's the only way it works. And oftentimes we're too arrogant to acknowledge that. And so we're always trying to reinvent things and do it our way. We're always trying to prove it wrong. And I'm going to find another way. Why? Why are you making it hard for yourself? There's already a way that every other person has used and has worked. Why do you have to put yourself through the pain of trying to recreate a path that's already been created? Do you honestly think that you're doing yourself any favors by trying to do it your own way? And you've all got your own journey to go through anyway, right? It took me 3 years to work this simple thing out. When I joined network marketing, for the first 3 years, I was convinced I could do it better than everyone else. I'd see people on stage sharing their stories and I'd be looking at them, and I was more interested in comparing how amazing I was to how unamazing they were than listening to them and learning from them, right? And I wasted 3 years. I took my time getting to work it out that, hold on, there was an actual, system and a structure and a path that just works. And the minute I surrendered to that, boom, it all started to work for me. I was like, oh, wow. So that was in my earlier years. I was like, okay, life can be easier when we look for the patterns and we follow the patterns. All right. So I'm going to open up. We've got a few more minutes. So I'd love to hear from you guys. What opened up for you in that little process there? What have you learned? What are you going to do? What's happening with you? Dizzy, how you doing, bro?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You've managed to do it every week. Deliver what is necessary. Yeah, you went back to basics today. Really appreciate it. What did I take from it? It's easy to forget. It's easy to forget how far you've come. And, once you get into that mindset that, okay, yeah, I can do stuff, like you said, once you know it's possible, you can do it again. I remember there was I think it was Johnny Wimbury who said, you can't be what you can't see, right? And if you go back to the moments where you've achieved stuff, you're like, you know what, I can do it. I am capable of doing way much more than I'm doing right now. So yeah, muchas gracias.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you, Diz. Sharon, how you doing?
Hello, how are
Hey.
you? Oh, I was so glad I managed to catch this tonight on my way back from taking my grandson to judo, and they did a grading today, which I was dead pleased about.
Wicked.
So they both got graded. It was lovely. I'll be honest with you, you really hit a few notes tonight on me. I mean, I'm from, those people that don't know, but I was an international judo player. But it was weird. I could never get over. You should have spoke to me 30 years ago, Carpesh, this. I think that would have worked then. But, I always remember achieving really, I mean, I wasn't the best by any stretch or means, but I always worked hard and I was very, very, very dedicated and very committed. I was on the British team and things like that. And it was weird. When I used to win a competition or I used to get really placed well, I used to work so hard. I put everything into it. But honestly, as soon as it was over, I was like, I was never satisfied. And I was like, why am I not happy? So I never celebrated the moments of greatness, as you call them. And I think it's a bit of a sin, really, that we were not taught things like this at school. When you do achieve something, we should celebrate ourselves, definitely. And I've had to grow towards doing that as I've got older. But honestly, I was never, ever satisfied. And people say, oh, I bet you really made up, you won that, didn't you? And I was like, yeah. And deep down, I was like, no, what am I doing next? I was always, maybe I was hyperactive, I don't know. But I never appreciate the time that I did something great. And I think you've hit the nail on the head on your head gets used to kind of looking for the next thing, but not celebrating that like buzz or unite or feel great about something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
You probably should have spoken to me 30 years ago, maybe longer than that, actually. I'm showing my age now. But absolutely great, back to basics, lovely. I know, why teach something? And what I love about the nuts and bolts, it doesn't matter what you do in life. I think what you're teaching applies to your health, your wealth, your family, the way you look at things. There's a lot of things that I'm learning from you, Carpesh, that I'm quite a wise woman, I think, by now. But, you're certainly assisting me. And I think for me as a person within the network marketing space, you've really helped me feel that I'm not there yet, Carpesh, but I'm heading towards something, So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sharon. Love it. Look at that. 30 years I'm in. Paul, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Calps, you reminded me of something that I learned many, many years ago as an engineer. Often we do try and find a better way, an easier way, a quicker way, a more efficient way. And then there's a very simple rule in the electrical industry that says when all else fails, just read the instructions. There is definitely, rules to the universe, rules to nature, rules to how things are governed. And there is a rule to success, and it's follow the instructions. And I'm grateful for your mentorship over the last 2 years. That just constantly reminds me of that, and I'm so grateful for it. Yeah, just follow the simplicity of the plan, and don't overcomplicate it, don't overcook the egg. Just enjoy it. So thanks for reminding me of that, Calps.
Beautiful.
Love you, man.
Well done, Paul. Beautiful. Thank you. Tom, how you doing, bud?
Good, man. I'll tell you, that was a great section. I'm driving, and I booked my time to learn in the car, and I was getting some work done right before this started, and I just wanted to let you know that it was phenomenal. I'm reminded that our mind is limited by what it knows, and just like a computer is limited by the programs that it has programmed into it. And I'm going to have a reader, and I know you are too, avid course taker. And I just think that everything that we put into our mind really expands our awareness to create the dreams that we want to create. And, if you're not reading the right books, I focus an hour a day, every day on learning, and that accomplishes about 200 hours a year. And many of us know that, a 4-year degree at a university is basically 125 hours of study, at least it is in the United States. So, the question that I have, for people, if you're not you're not realizing your dreams, you're probably just limited by what you know. And I think that's where these sessions really open my mind. And I was laughing because I was thinking about, you were talking about the mind. And I felt like, well, if I could just take my mind and put it out in front of me in a desk, like an employer review, a 360 review, and I could do that review based on my mind and say, well, you know, you're lacking in this area of your relationship, you're lacking in this area of your workplace, and kind of do that employee review of your brain. And when you sit back and look at your brain and go, where has it gotten you till now? You know, where has it failed you? And you have an honest conversation with your brain sitting right in front of you, kind of like you're doing an employer review. And you just say that, well, it's obviously that I haven't achieved my dreams, or I haven't been this good with my money, or I haven't been this great in my relationships. So maybe I need some relationship books, or maybe I need some mentors in this area. And I think that's what's so incredible about being around you is I'm just, you know, we've both been in the industry, you know, probably an equal amount of decades. And we've been to all the seminars and we keep hearing the same stuff over and over. It's the people you surround yourself with, because they have the knowledge that they're gonna help you unlock those areas of your life where you don't have the programming. You know, if your computer doesn't have, you know, a Microsoft Word in it, you're not going to be able to write documents. You know, you need to go get that program. And, you know, just investing time in the nuts and bolts, I think, is so important, because just going back to, just remember that quote, you are limited by what you don't know. And, you know, I think that is very important. If you don't have success in your life, it means you don't have success programming in your mind. And just an incredible session. And I want to thank you. I was driving down the road, just smiling as you were talking, and just thinking about, you know, if you have shit in your life, you got to get an antivirus program, and you got to get this shit out of it, you know, and you got to reprogram your mind. So we are basically supercomputers. And if you're not filling that supercomputer with awesome stuff like this training today, you're just missing probably the simplest lesson in life. Your input determines your output. Thanks for your time today.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tom. Beautiful. Look at that. Learning on the go. Always a favorite way of doing stuff. I remember in my early days when I discovered this whole process of, you know, recreating the brain and reprogramming the brain. And I used to listen to stuff in my car all the time. And I called it the Mobile University back in the day. You know, the tapes were always in there. And whenever I had a member, any time I had friends or family in the car with me and I'd be playing this stuff, they'd be like, can you not put the radio on? I'll be, nope. No, I never put the radio on in my car. It's like, we put some music on. Nope, not in my car. You listen to this stuff. You listen to, when you're in my car, you listen to what I listen to. And that they'd be like, it's amazing. They would fight not listening to great content. And you can just see where people are in their life. As in, you know, like, why are you fighting this beautiful, like, for me, it was better than any song that you'd ever hear. And for them, it's the worst thing you could put them through. And you could just see the difference then. It's like, wow, isn't that amazing? Monish. Go ahead and unmute.
They
Hey.
say you need to read a book more than one time. And same goes with listening to Mr. Kalpesh Patel when he's speaking. You need to listen to him more than one time in his nuts and bolts. I'm glad I'm sitting on a cycle in the gym, not driving outside. I would miss the path and follow on in the ditch, because this information here was so to the point. Because when you were speaking, I saw my life going this up and down, and all that experiences you have. And thank you once again, nuts and bolts. You should, I mean, if people should pay for this, this is like $100 session minimum. Then they will appreciate. Then they will appreciate.
I'll send you my Bitcoin address.
Send it to me. I'll pay it. Don't worry, right away. Because, you know, when you pay for something, you put a value to it, and then you will understand it. If it's free, they don't put the value on the information that you're giving. So for you to do this 1 hour every week, people should just flock all over the world just to listen to this. And for 35 minutes, I just got paid in a currency that you know. So it's pretty good. Pretty good. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Never stop doing it. You have your brother from another mother in Sweden. You know that. So
indeed.
Peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Monish. Always a pleasure. Thank you. Alistair, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad, thank you. First time here. I just thought I'd ask a quick question
Wonderful.
regarding whether I'm in the right place. I was invited by a man called John Evans.
Okay.
Is this the right place? Do you know? I followed the
Very
exact link
possibly.
he sent me, and the
Yeah,
meeting
well.
starts at 8 o'clock. So is this?
Okay. Yeah, you're just a little bit early. So this is the
Is that
tail
what
end
it
of
is?
another meeting. Yeah, yeah. So
To
give
be
it
honest,
another
I was
few
able
minutes.
to hear the last couple of minutes of what you were saying. It sounded pretty decent. So I didn't catch enough of it to give a full analysis, but I'll shut up
Sure.
now because I'm not supposed to be here.
That's all right. No, that's fine.
you.
Well done. And yeah, you can catch the whole thing if you want to on YouTube. So it's always recorded there.
Smashing. Thank you, Carl.
Yeah, and we'll get started in a few minutes. So thank you for that. Awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's another fantastic session of nuts and bolts of self-leadership in direct sales. And one of the things that we've got a couple of quotes thrown in today. I want to finish this session off with is the thinking that got you where you are now does not possess the thinking that is required to get you to where you want to get to. I love that phrase. The thinking that got you to where you are now does not possess the thinking to get you where you want to get to. Because if it did, you'd already be there, right? So that's the gap that you always want to be working on. Where, what is the thinking that's going to get you to that next place? Is that Marjorie? Hope I'm reading that right. Oh, let me see. It is. Hi, how are we doing?
Quite well, thank you. My son has joined me in this, and
Lovely, welcome.
I've got to admit, I've been making excuses for myself for the age I'm at 84, thinking,
Oh,
thinking nobody's going to bother joining me at my age.
wow.
And I've realised so much now. I've had your thoughts thinking, don't think like that, Marjorie, don't think like that. And, I've gone through a lot of programs similar to this, but suddenly you have a light bulb moment, don't you? And I think, well, why worry if they don't join you? Enjoy it yourself and get on with it.
Exactly.
People you can do it. And I have been realizing, because I'm in other companies and they've not worked out very well. And I'm learning so much more and it's sticking in. And I think, gosh, this is, it's like starting school.
It is.
I'm absorbing it all. And I'm a bit slow on some points, but golly, it's making such a difference.
Wow.
I've had a good life, and everything, and I'm on my own. I find that I want to learn much more before he takes me up to heaven.
Oh, beautiful.
So thank you for that. And yes, I've been smiling at the things you've been saying. I think, oh, gosh, that's been me. Yeah, that's been me. Right. So
amazing.
David's coming on the next 8 o'clock call, I think. So
yeah.
Well,
look, Marjorie, I want to just first of all thank you for making yourself available here for the community and sharing, because that's also a huge contribution you've added to me for sure. And I bet you've added to a whole bunch of people listening here today. 84 is so inspirational because you said so much in just a few seconds. The fact that you are still curious, you're still open and wanting to learn and figuring it out. And I'm thinking, how many people do we know that lose, forget your age, they lose all of that in their 40s, like they're 44 and they're sat in their armchair and learning. What are you talking? Learn. I know everything. I don't need to learn anything more. I know everything. And that's it. Boom. They're there in the armchair for the next 40 years.
I usually give myself an hour at night doing something, like Netflix.
I love it.
And switching off.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of Netflix myself. That's my go-to place for unwinding and shutting down and just doing all that. But beautiful. I love it. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you. And everyone else, everyone that's shown up here, that listened, that learned, that more importantly took notes, so that you've created a bit of a groove and created a little bit of a footprint for yourselves. I hope that you are able to revisit those notes on a regular basis and continue to plug into your greatness, plug into your growth, and plug into your success. So thank you so much. Much love. I'm going to start another seminar in a few minutes. So you've got a few minutes to go and grab a cup of water or cup of tea or whatever your thing is, and get ready for 8 p.m. UK time, where we'll do a presentation of the opportunity. If you've got to invite some people, go ahead and hit the invites and get all of that done. I'll see you in a few minutes. Mwah. Thank you. Ciao for now.